Close your eyes for a moment and imagine yourself standing at the heart of the greatest city the world has ever known. The year is 1890, and London has become the beating heart of an empire upon which the sun never sets. 5.5 million souls call this sprawling metropolis home, making it the largest city on earth. The air itself seems to hum with purpose and possibility, thick with coal smoke and ambition in equal measure. As dawn breaks over the Thames, the city begins its daily transformation. The river, that ancient artery of commerce and life, reflects the pale morning light like burnished pewter. Gas lamps still flicker along the embankments, their yellow glow slowly surrendering to the grey-gold light of a new day. This is Victorian London at the height of its power, a city that has shed the skin of its medieval past and emerged as something entirely new, something magnificent and terrible all at once. The sounds of the city rising are like an orchestra tuning before a grand performance. The clip-clop of horses' hooves on cobblestones creates a rhythmic percussion, accompanied by the distant whistle of trains and the cries of street vendors already hawking their wares. Chimney sweeps call out their services, their voices echoing between the rows of buildings that seem to climb ever higher into the sooty sky. Let us begin our journey at the river. For London has always been defined by the Thames. In 1890, the river is still very much a working waterway, crowded with steamships, barges, and wherries that ferry goods and passengers across its murky waters. The smell is pungent here, a mixture of tar, fish, sewage, and industry. But it is the smell of life, of commerce, of a city that never stops moving. Look upstream and you will see the magnificent Tower Bridge. Though it stands incomplete, its Gothic towers rising like sentinels, but not yet connected by the famous bascule spans. The construction site is a marvel in itself, with workers swarming over the structure like ants on a grand architectural anthill. When it is completed in 4 years' time, it will be the most advanced bascule bridge in the world. A perfect marriage of medieval aesthetic and modern engineering. Downstream stands Westminster Bridge, rebuilt in its current form just 30 years earlier. Its 7 graceful arches carry an endless stream of horse-drawn omnibuses, cabs, and pedestrians between the north and south banks. From here, you can see the Houses of Parliament in all their Gothic revival splendor. The Palace of Westminster, rebuilt after the devastating fire of 1834, has only recently been completed, with Big Ben's tower reaching 316 feet into the London sky. The clock face, 23 feet in diameter, gazes out over the city like a watchful eye, its great bell tolling the hours with a deep resonance that can be heard for miles. The architectural genius of Charles Barry and Augustus Pugin created something that appears ancient yet is thoroughly modern. Every inch of the building speaks of British power and permanence. The limestone facade, already darkening from the coal smoke that hangs perpetually over the city, is adorned with statues of monarchs and intricate tracery that would make a medieval mason weep with envy. Walking along the Victoria Embankment, completed just 15 years ago, we find ourselves in the administrative heart of the empire. The embankment itself is a testament to Victorian engineering prowess, having reclaimed 37 acres from the Thames and creating a new thoroughfare that houses vital sewers and underground railway tunnels beneath its surface. The ornate cast-iron lampposts, each crowned with a dolphin and adorned with the coat of arms of the Metropolitan Board of Works, line the walkway at regular intervals. Whitehall stretches before us, a canyon of government buildings, where the fate of a quarter of the world's population is decided daily. The Foreign Office, completed in 1868, presents a magnificent facade of Italian Renaissance inspiration, its cream-colored stone contrasting beautifully with the darker buildings around it. Inside, diplomats and clerks manage the complex web of relations that bind together an empire spanning every continent. The Admiralty Building, headquarters of the Royal Navy that rules the waves, sits imposing and solid, its screen of Ionic columns adding classical dignity to the street. Through those doors pass the orders that dispatch warships to the furthest reaches of the globe, maintaining the Pax Britannica that allows British commerce to flourish. Our journey takes us eastward now, toward the oldest part of London, where history lies thick upon the ground. The Tower of London, nearly 1,000 years old, stands as a reminder of a more brutal age. Its white tower, built by William the Conqueror, rises above the modern city like a ghost from another time. The fortress has served as royal palace, prison, armory, and treasury throughout its long existence. In 1890, it houses the crown jewels, guarded by the famous beefeaters in their Tudor uniforms of scarlet and gold. The tower's Norman architecture seems almost quaint compared to the industrial structures rising around it. Warehouses of brick and iron line the riverbanks, their loading docks busy with the goods of empire. Tea from India, rubber from Malaya, wool from Australia, timber from Canada. The contrast between old and new is stark, yet somehow both are quintessentially London. Nearby stands the monument to the Great Fire of London, a Doric column 202 feet tall, exactly the distance from its base to the baker's shop in Pudding Lane, where the Great Fire began in 1666. Climbing the 311 steps to its viewing platform offers a panorama of a city transformed. Where once stood wooden medieval houses, now rise buildings of brick, stone, and iron. The city that burned has been reborn in fireproof materials, yet it retains its labyrinthine street pattern, a palimpsest of 2,000 years of history. Dominating the skyline in a way that even the modern structures cannot diminish is Christopher Wren's masterpiece, St. Paul's Cathedral. Completed in 1710, it replaced the medieval cathedral, destroyed in the Great Fire. Its great dome, 111 feet in diameter and rising 365 feet above the street, remains the most recognizable feature of the London skyline. Standing in the shadow of this magnificent building, one cannot help but feel dwarfed by its scale and grandeur. The Portland stone, scrubbed clean just a few years ago, gleams almost white against the grey sky. The western facade, with its two Baroque towers and grand portico of paired Corinthian columns, speaks of confidence and faith. This is not the soaring Gothic of Westminster Abbey, but something more classical, more rational, more suited perhaps to the empirical age in which we live. Inside, the cathedral is a symphony in stone and light. The vast nave stretches before us, its barrel vault decorated with mosaics that are still being installed. The dome's interior, painted by Sir James Thornhill with scenes from the life of St. Paul, seems to float impossibly above us. The Whispering Gallery, running around the interior of the dome, demonstrates acoustic properties that would delight any scientist, where a whisper against one wall can be heard clearly 100 feet away on the opposite side. Moving westward again, we find ourselves on the Strand, one of London's grandest streets, connecting the City of London with Westminster. This is where commerce, law, and culture intersect. The Royal Courts of Justice, completed just 7 years ago in 1883, present a Gothic facade over 1,000 feet long, its great hall rising to an oak-beamed roof 80 feet above the mosaic floor. Here, the laws that govern the empire are interpreted and applied, in courtrooms panelled in oak and lit by gas chandeliers. Further along stands Somerset House, a massive neoclassical building housing government offices and learned societies. Its great courtyard, once open to the Thames before the embankment was built, now hosts events and gatherings of London society. The building represents the 18th century ideals of order and proportion, its Portland stone facade presenting an unbroken line along the Strand. Nearby, Covent Garden bustles with life. The market, housed beneath a magnificent glass and iron roof designed by Charles Fowler, is a riot of colour and sound. Flower sellers, fruit vendors, and merchants of every description cry out their wares. The smell of roses mingles with that of oranges from Spain, fresh vegetables from the market gardens of Kent, and coffee from the nearby shops. The Covent Garden Theatre, now known as the Royal Opera House, presents operas and ballets to London's elite, Its Victorian facade, a recent addition to a building with theatrical traditions stretching back over a century. Continuing our journey westward, we arrive at Piccadilly, the great boulevard that defines fashionable London. Here, Victorian prosperity is on full display. The street is lined with gentlemen's clubs, hotels, and shops catering to the wealthy and the aristocratic. The Ritz Hotel, which will open in 16 years' time, will make its home here. But already the area exudes an air of refined luxury. Burlington House, home of the Royal Academy of Arts, presents its Palladian facade to Piccadilly, its Renaissance Revival additions completed just a few decades ago. Behind its walls hang the masterpieces of British art, and its annual exhibitions are events of the social season. The courtyard, surrounded by learned societies dedicated to chemistry, geology, and astronomy, represents the Victorian marriage of art and science. St. James's Palace, built by Henry VIII, still serves as a royal residence and the official seat of the royal court. Its Tudor brick, dark with age, reminds us that even in this modern age, ancient traditions persist. The palace is not grand in the manner of continental palaces, but it possesses a distinctly English character, comfortable rather than ostentatious, its power lying in what it represents rather than in architectural display. Nearby stands the recently completed Shaftesbury Memorial Fountain in Piccadilly Circus, topped with its famous aluminum statue of Eros. The fountain commemorates the philanthropic works of the Earl of Shaftesbury, a reminder that Victorian prosperity has not come without cost, and that some among the wealthy class feel obligation toward those less fortunate. Our journey takes us northward now, into Bloomsbury, the intellectual heart of London. Here stands the British Museum, one of the greatest treasure houses of human culture ever assembled. The building, designed by Robert Smirker in the Greek Revival style, presents a facade of Ionic columns that would not look out of place in ancient Athens. Completed in the 1850s, it houses collections brought from every corner of the empire and beyond. The Rosetta Stone, the Elgin marbles, Egyptian mummies, Assyrian sculptures, countless manuscripts and artifacts representing 5,000 years of human civilization. The Great Court, recently covered with a magnificent glass and iron roof designed by Sidney Smirke, is a space of light and contemplation. The circular reading room at its center, with its distinctive blue and gold dome, serves as the working space for scholars from around the world. Karl Marx wrote Das Kapital here, surrounded by the very artifacts of the civilizations whose economic systems he was critiquing. The museum represents the Victorian ideal of public education and enlightenment. Admission is free, and on any given day, one can see visitors from every walk of life studying the exhibits, bettering themselves through exposure to beauty and knowledge. This democratization of culture is a peculiarly Victorian achievement, born of the belief that education can uplift humanity. As afternoon fades into evening, gas lamps begin to flicker to life across the city. In 1890, London is still a city of gaslighting, though the new electric lights are beginning to appear in the most modern buildings. The lamplighters make their rounds, their long poles reaching up to open valves and ignite the mantles that will hold back the darkness for another night. From Parliament Hill on Hampstead Heath, one can look down upon the vast expanse of London as night falls. The city spreads before us like a sea of lights, punctuated by the dark mass of the Thames cutting through its centre. Church spires and towers rise above the general level, silhouetted against the last light in the western sky. Somewhere in that vast expanse, 5.5 million people are living their lives, each a story, each a thread in the grand tapestry of this extraordinary city. This is London in 1890, a city at the height of its power and influence, standing astride the world like a modern colossus. It is a city of contrasts and contradictions, where unimaginable wealth exists alongside grinding poverty, where ancient traditions persist amid rapid modernization, where the most advanced technology of the age operates in buildings designed to evoke the distant past. It is a city that has shaped the modern world, whose influence will persist long after the empire that made it great has faded into history.